I will start with, why don't we get a sample of these in your hands first so they're not just sitting there. So here we have vanilla honey, which was our top seller until we launched Yumberry Mango Kiss. This is a product that we manufactured in Cedar Rapids by my company Steve-Ecolips. And it is made with mangango oil. A friend of a friend found this oil, found this tribal community in Zambia, Africa, knee-deep in mangango seed, and there was absolutely no source of income for this community, and they were like, I bet you well, let's find out if the seed has any oil in it that's valuable. And we did. We found out that it had omega-3s and omega-6s, and it's great for your lips and skin. And so we started importing it, and consumers responded. So we basically created this income stream and the supply chain around an oil that nobody's ever heard of. And it worked out well. Besides having fun branding, consumers, as it turns out, that consumers like words that they have never heard of, like mangango. And so that has become our top selling product. So introduce myself, Steve Schreiber, definitely lifetime entrepreneur. From the early days, I had always just envisioned myself owning a business or running businesses. I mean, like literally from the day I was born. When I was in school, I wasn't there much, and so I just couldn't handle the classroom. And over the course of grade school, I had a poor attendance and terrible grades. Middle school, even worse, and then high school, I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So I moved out of my house at age 16 and quit going to school, and got a full-time job at McDonald's. And I was just like, all right, here's my starting point. This is where I'm gonna go from here. There were some great things about it, like making $5.35 an hour while working 40 hours a week while all my friends were in school, and and the freedom associated with it. But it's been a long, hard struggle. Every job that I've had, I've worked my way up into management, and including that job. And also, I've had really crappy jobs, and although I learned a lot at that one, that would be one that I wouldn't want to go back to. So I've always looked at every negative experience as a boundary, or a point that I don't really want to go back to. After some time in the workforce, I was telling the story earlier. My grandma, I ran into my grandma, and she's like, it'd just be really nice if do you plan on going back to high school? I'm like, no, I have no plans for that. She's like, well, don't you think you ought to at least get your high school diploma? And I'm like, well, maybe. So I found an alternative high school. Like back then, this is the late 1900s. There was no Iowa Big. So I found this program called Project Ready, and it was in Bettendorf, Iowa. And it was either kids that had to work full-time to help their family pay the bills, or people like me that were on their own, or pregnant girls that didn't want to go into a regular classroom. And we had to go to school for 4 hours a week. And I haven't been to this big yet, but like my school was a lot like this. There were fewer whiteboards. We did a lot less on whiteboards and no computers. But just the vibe and everything. And so we'd go to school 4 hours. We'd sit there, and it'd be one day, like literally one day, 4 hours, and hand in our homework, get our next version of homework, get some help on some stuff, and then be gone, and then go back to our regular life. I graduated high school a couple of years later, got my diploma, and starting businesses after that. So one of my first businesses was a rock climbing business. So I figured out that I really love nature and risk taking, and so I started rock climbing. I became really good at it, and I started a business called Vertical Pursuits. It was great, phenomenal, being outdoors, getting paid to take people up mountains in Colorado, and taking people climbing in Iowa at Pictured Rocks Park. But I also realized that a business like that, I could only, and I'm also I'm a capitalist, I like to make money. And so I realized that I could only make as much as I could work. So I couldn't, if I got hurt or sick, I wasn't making money, and if I I didn't really see a real game plan to scale it, and so I was like, okay, that's great reference point. I want to move on from there. So in I guess '95, I met this girl who was making lip balm, and she was cute, and she gave me a sample of her lip balm, and I was like, that's really good. So in like a really short amount of time, I fell in love with her and the lip balm recipe. So so I was like, hey, I'm gonna sell this stuff, And she's like, oh yeah, whatever. Like, she didn't know idea what I was talking about. And I still hadn't really made any money by that point. I was just making a living. And she had $5,000 left in her college savings. She had done with college, and she had $5,000. And I convinced her that if we bought some labels and some containers and some raw materials, that we could make a batch, and we could, get a design done, and I could start peddling the lip balm. And so we did. And 5 years later, we sold that company for $1.2 million. It's called Raining Rose. You guys know? Yeah.
I was wondering what they did.
Right, so we sold that, and in that period of time, we grew really fast. Like, we were onto something. We were onto natural products. But what we were not a brand. We were a contract packager. We were private label. So if you guys had if you had a business or a nonprofit or an event, a wedding, we would make lip balm and put your logo on it. And so that is what spurred that growth. And although it was awesome, it was great, my goal was to get that company to over $1 million and then move on. And in that process, we realized, I also just, it was cool in the beginning putting other people's logos on the product, but it really wasn't that as fulfilling as I hoped. So while I had that company, we recognized this opportunity, that we were passionate about organic products, and we saw the future in organics. And so in 2003, when I sold the company, I had a caveat in the non-compete that said I could launch a brand of lip balm called Ecolips. So it wasn't like I would be competing with them because they're making other people's stuff, and I'm going out and selling Ecolips to retail, to consumers, and that kind of thing. So that was 2003, and we considered ourselves, that was before like the Hy-Vee, everywhere, you can buy organic products everywhere now, right? Back then, there weren't. There were not segregated sections, there were no organic, there were no integrated organic products, it just wasn't a thing. So we were the first organic lip balm on the market, and we really considered, and so I took all that money that I made, put it into this, and we really considered ourselves a gateway organic product, where, kind of like a gateway drug, where like you try this and then you might try something harder. Well, we were like, here, for a $2 or $3 lip balm, you can, hopefully people have a good experience with this organic product, and then maybe they'll buy a, $5 gallon of milk, or some produce, or some clothing, or whatever it might be. And we believed that it worked. There were a few of us in the industry that really pioneered organic cosmetics, and we held true to our mission, and we just were like, one consumer at a time, we need to have a good experience with this. So fast forward to today, we back then we were filling with turkey basters in our kitchen, back when we started Raining Rose, and now we have full automation. We're making somewhere between 70 and 80,000 sticks a day of this that we're shipping out, and we can barely keep up with demand. We sell into 15,000 retailers across the country. So we started with just the small mom and pop stores and the natural food stores, then we got into like the Hy-Vees of the world, and then we got into the CVS's of the world, and like now we sell into Walmart. So we're becoming like one of the leading brands in the country, like right before our eyes.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it's awesome. It's like, so people are gonna see this in, this brand, Mango Kiss came out a couple years ago, And there's a thing that I saw, like, have you guys heard of Burt's Bees, like the lip balm
Yeah.
skincare line? Okay. So like when they made it big and they got into like all the Targets and the Walmarts and everything, everybody's like, oh my God, Burt's Bees is like this overnight success. But in fact, they have been around for 30 years before that, just grinding away, like doing what we have been doing. And so it's really interesting watching the trends and seeing how it all fits together. But yeah, so we're now like the overnight success of the lip balm category, but it's been long and grueling. It's been like terrible, actually, and sometimes. And so that brings me to like one of my first points. I never try to have the same talk twice, and so I always ask like one. Couple weeks ago, I asked my wife, I'm like, what should I talk about? She's like, why don't you tell them the truth about entrepreneurship, you know, and like, cause everything that we see about it is just, it's like all sexy and like, it's like, you know, like somebody started this company, sold it for $10 billion and, you know, and that's like not the norm. So on my way out of the office today, somebody even said, they were like, an entrepreneur is someone who chooses to work 80 hours a week so they can get out of a 40-hour-a-week job, which is insane, right? So something has to drive that. In 2006, we were losing so much money. We had our first push, we put our money into it, we had some good distribution, and then we lost a couple of big customers because we were just a little bit ahead of the time. 2006, we were losing $30,000 a month after month, and there was no end in sight. We were laying off people. I had no idea what to do, and the stress level of that put me in the hospital for like 6 months, bedridden. Had like zero energy, lethargic, the whole deal. And what had happened was there's these hormones, like survival hormones, and they just been kicking in every single day because we're just going after the goal. We're not giving up. And I had just exhausted all of that within my body. And so it felt like I was dying. I wasn't, but that was. Like I always talk about risk, and like that's the biggest risk is that stress in this kind of business. I think it's worth it, and I persevered. Like a lot of people would have closed their company down and everything, and I persevered my way through it. But that's like the low points. You have the low points. You have the points where you have to fire people. You have whether it's a health issue. It really becomes an art of problem solving. Like that's another key to success in my book is, and it's just like these projects that you guys are involved with. Problem solving your way to success is basically, getting there in the morning and problem solving your way through the day. Whether it's a financial issue that you have to deal with, customer didn't pay you, or you don't have enough money to pay the bills, or an HR issue, you got some employee problems. We have equipment that breaks down and deadlines to hit, and we can just continually problem solve. So one thing I like about this, like teaching entrepreneurship, is that no matter what you end up doing in your life, is that I believe we can all be more entrepreneurial in our jobs, whether we're a business owner or an engineer. The more entrepreneurial we can be, the more flexible, the more agile, the more problems we can solve, and the more successful you can be in your individual and personal life, for that matter. So you solve the problem, move on from it, learn from it. Hopefully not have it happen to you again. So we're a B Corp. A B corporation. The B stands for benefit, and it means that we focus on a triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. And when we talk about people, it's our employees, it's our vendors, it's our, so like our suppliers, it's the growers in Zambia, Africa, of the Mongongo oil. It's the community. So like, this fits into our B Corp, like me coming and talking to you guys, not that I wouldn't want to do it anyway, but it's all about like outreach and working in the community. Planet, so people, planet, profit. So the second arm is planet, and that is like the ingredients that we use and trying to reduce our impact on the earth. Trying to use solar and wind power for production and just basically reduce our impact. And profit is one that is really important. Like, you have to make money to run a business. You have to make money to give it away, you know? So we try to keep those three in balance. Try to keep our people happy, and at the same time, you know, run like a fully sustainable business is the people, planet, profit. Because if you're missing any one of those things, you're not really sustainable. Any questions at this point? I don't want to talk. I mean, I know I got an hour. I was only gonna like talk for a half hour and have us all converse, but any. Okay.
I don't know.
Can you tell us like more of your struggles?
Yeah.
Everyone's favorite question.
Yeah. That's interesting. So, cause one thing I preach is like risk taking. So as a mountaineer, as a rock climber, I'm like all about physical risk. Like I love I love what it does to you, and the challenges with it, and dealing with like problem solving your way through that mental stress of like, okay, I could fall at any minute and die, or I can try to work through this problem and continue to, go upward toward the summit. And so I've always taken risk in two buckets. So like, for me being an entrepreneur, other than that stress situation I had, it's like, I put risk in two buckets. There's physical risk where you could die from, and there's psychological risk that is just literally like, everything from getting nervous before talking in front of a group of people to being scared of signing on a loan, like borrowing money, getting a line of credit, taking on a customer that might be too big, a new project. I think too many people just lump risk together, and the reason people don't get out, and why most people, go to school, go to college, get a job, is because it feels like it's less risky. But in reality, like by at least putting those risk buckets into like, hey, I'm not gonna, if you guys graduate and go start a business and fail, like how risky is it? You would absolutely be a better person for doing that. If you, however, if you, did something life-threatening that you could die from. So, I guess the point being is like, just try to understand what's risky and what's not. Like truly risking your health. In terms of the struggles, man, oh my God. Like, I've had a couple customers that owed me a lot of money, and we had a really great relationship. Like, I've been screwed a ton, like just a ton. So like, a customer that was a good friend of mine, became a good friend of mine over the years, and was ordering a lot. He owed my company $50,000, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just having a rough time, whatever, And then he kept saying, "Oh, it's gonna be like next week." And I'm like, "Cool, man. Hey, no problem. I mean, I need the money too, but no problem. I know you're good for it. You're good for it." And then next week I called, and like the number was disconnected, and he's gone, like from the face of the earth. $50,000, like devastating. So to recover from that, is like, Well, we got hit with the flood in 2008. Same kind of deal. Like, the flood came through our building. We didn't lose much equipment, but we lost over $100,000 in business and wages, so we continued to pay our employees through that time period, even though we couldn't. We borrowed money to pay our employees. But it took us 3 years to recover from like the flood. And some of my employees might argue that we're still recovering from it, even though it's 10 years ago. So it's, I mean, like right now, CVS owes us $100,000, and I don't think they're gonna pay us. Most of it's money related, but like the money is everything in a business. I mean, it's not everything, but it's like, we continually, you know, year after year, we get better at getting in the right deals with the right customers, but we sometimes take a risk that they're like, hey, you know, you pay us $100,000 and we'll put you in more stores. Most of them make you pay to play. So like every product that you see on the shelves of CVS and Walgreens, that company paid to have their products in there, just so they can get into the audience. It's called slotting fees. And they'll convince us that, hey, you're probably gonna sell $500,000 a year in there, and it's only gonna cost you $100,000. And so we're like, okay, let's try that, you know? And we put our products in there, and we hardly sell anything, and we still owe them, you know, a lot of money in the process. And so those money struggles ripple down into cultural struggles in the organization where, or culture, where like we have a pretty good place to work, but we have missed payroll from like that 2006 period. We missed a couple payrolls, but in general, like sometimes we can't bring raw materials, so we miss a deadline, which makes somebody's job a lot harder. Say that, I guess most of the struggles were in the beginning, and having been around this long now, it's less and less, but it's still, there's still some good ones. Trying to think of a good story to tell y'all. So one thing too, my grandpa said to me was, he would write me letters from Arizona, and he had, on the back of his letters, he had a stamp, and it was communicate or deteriorate. He'd like stamp it on it, and basically telling me to, like, I'm telling everybody he wrote a letter to, like, you should write me a letter back, you know, you can do that. But it stuck with me, and I use it as my mantra in business. And so whether it's, I mean, daily, I'm communicating with my employees, my vision. In 2003, I wrote a business plan that was basically a 20-year plan. And I pulled, and we bring it up every quarter, we bring it up every year. We talk about like where we're heading, and so like we have pulse meetings, stand-up pulse meetings every couple days where it's like all employees are standing up and we're all syncing up. And just the idea of, I don't think you can over-communicate. That being said, like, once you say what you need to say, then stops, you know, I guess, try to make it in as few words as possible. But definitely, communication is key, especially in, I mean, whether it's a project that's moving fast or a business with a lot of moving parts. Like, can't stress enough how key communication is and how important it is to getting a team to work together towards a common goal. One thing that I had happen, and this is maybe relevant with some of your projects, but like, you know, if you have, you know, like, so here's you and your team today, and here's your goal. And you guys identify a goal, all right, everybody go to work. What happens over time is like, if you have, like for us, I'll just make it easier, like, our finance team was you know, we started out and like everybody was on board, but then finance started working towards a little bit different goal, and marketing was like heading towards, they were just like off, and then operations was they think they were moving towards the goal, but we literally had everybody sort of heading in the right direction, but not working towards the same goals. And so I go through this process of alignment in realignment. So we'll sit down and meet and talk about alignment and just make sure, okay, why were you working on that one thing? Well, because we were trying to solve this problem related to quality assurance. Well, is that servicing the goal? No, all right, recalibrate, and then over time you just have to do that. Like the longer and bigger the project is, the more that your team will get out of alignment. And I've seen it, I've worked for a couple of companies too, where I've seen these big corporations where real simply put, a marketing team or a marketer and a salesperson they're supposed to hit the same goal of selling product, but they're on two different bonus plans or two different incentive plans. And so one of them is trying to increase store count, where the other one's trying to increase hits on social media or something. And without, really making sure that they're aligned, it just doesn't, it's not efficient. It's not efficient way to run business. So, alignment.
One thing that I've noticed with the lot of people that we've spoken to is that school wasn't their forte.
Yeah.
Why is that? It's like a common thing.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Maybe, is it who they're asking? But I don't think they knew that about me, actually, when they asked me to come here.
It's just like a common thing, most people we talked to didn't do well in school,
Yeah.
or they dropped out of school.
Yeah. I think it's entrepreneurs,
Yeah,
It's just
it's just the way you think, it's just like you wanna get out there and do stuff and not have to sit in a classroom and learn about
Right.
it for hours on hours a day. You
Was
wanna
like,
actually
learn
go
from
stuff.
experience.
Was that your mindset on it?
Yeah, I was just like.
What were you thinking?
I was kind of like, how can I learn from this? I just couldn't learn from this or that person trying to tell me this. I needed to go do it, like a project. And by doing it, that's a world of difference, right? Yeah.
Do you think it could have been easier to start somewhere else, like in a different state, or?
I don't know. I don't think so. That's the reason I'm still in Iowa, because I definitely planned on moving out of Iowa, is we actually incorporated Ecolips we started Ecolips in California, because I'm like, I'm out of here. We formed Ecolips as a California corporation on the beach, and then realized how hard, in most other states, and it's getting better, but definitely the bigger cities, you're just a number, it's just harder. And maybe there's a better startup community, but there's more competition. And here, there's just this good Iowa work ethic where we trust each other, where you guys could call literally the president of CRST tomorrow, or some other big company, and probably get through to them and talk to them. It's people are more accessible and more trusting here. So I think it's a really good place to start a business, and it's a lot less expensive too. So we moved it back here. Preparation, a few years later, I was like, that's expensive, and the banks are terrible out there. And I will say this though, back then, entrepreneurship was not cool at all, and banks were not. They were like, you want to do what? They're like, seriously, I got turned down for so many loans from banks on this Raining Rose and Ecolips, because they're just like, the rate of failure for companies like this is strong, and we've never dealt with a company that makes lip balm, so we're not gonna. I had one bank straight up tell me I was gonna fail. Really? Well, fuck off. So, so that's the. But all in all, like Cedar Rapids in Iowa, especially with all the support structure behind entrepreneurship now, it's amazing. Sorry about dropping the F word.
No, it's empowering.
Right.
We can tell how frustrated you are.
Yeah. I mean, like, how do you know if I'm gonna fail, man? Like, you don't know if I'm gonna fail. You can't tell me if I'm gonna fail. Right. I'm like, so that's. I mean, so a look at you now moment. Another struggle. Like, we were in business for a couple of years with Raining Rose. So before I sold it and had money, then we had to order a bunch of beeswax to get an order out, and we were bone dry. The banks wouldn't loan me any money. I was done and wasn't sure what I was gonna do, and I wasn't super close to my dad. I grew up with my mom, single family, or single parent home, and she raised me on $13,000, so like not very much money, and I called my dad up, and I'm like, Dad, I'm in a jam. I need $5,000 to buy this beeswax so that I can go out and, I'm going to turn it into $10,000 in product, and then I'll be able to pay you back once I sell this product. And I was like, we got great momentum, and I'm pitching him this whole thing. And he gave me this massive lecture about, he's like, he said, when are you gonna stop doing what you wanna do and start doing what you have to do, which is getting a job? And thankfully, he still loaned me the money. He gave me an amortization schedule that was pretty high interest because he was punishing me. And he was treating it like a formal bank relationship. And he's like, you owe me this money, like whether your company fails, whatever. He's always been like that. I paid him back. But still, like, for your parent they're pretty influential, right? I mean, basically in so many words tell you that you're failing, and it's pretty tough. And we had friends all throughout the process, like, what are you doing, man? Like, making soap and lip balm, like, seriously, get a life, And our company this year is gonna do like, 10 million in sales. Our profit's gonna be 2 million, like profit. That's like real money. That's where, like, don't let other people influence you too much. If you're driven and passionate and you believe in yourself and you believe you can do it, prove yourself wrong instead of having other people try to prove you wrong.
What does a business plan for you look like? Because everyone has a business plan, and I know that they take a while.
Yeah.
But like, I still don't feel like I have a great grasp on what that looks like.
Yep. So I go into a lot of different phases with business plans. It's like, I definitely love the one sheet, mapping it out and just saying, all right, here's my goal, here's what I think I can do with this, MVP, minimum viable product thing. I have found over the years, and I've always been like anti-business plan, and banks are always wanting them and whatever. I'm like, fine, I'll put one together for you guys. I have found them to be super useful in the last 5 years. As I've formed other businesses, other startups, and had partners, by putting your plan into words and categorizing it and putting it into a succinct document that is shareable, you not only are forced to work out some of the challenges that you might not have had figured out, or you'll be forced to write down that you don't have this part figured out yet and you need to. But specifically when you have partners involved, it's essential. Because again, it's kind of like that alignment thing I was talking about earlier. If I was to say, hey, let's meet in the back of Lindale Mall this weekend,
let's meet back there, back at Lindell Mall this weekend. It's like, where in the back of Lindell Mall, what day are you talking about, you know? And it's like, I'm gonna open up an outdoor store in Czech Village. Well, and we're doing that in September, I have 3 partners. What is an outdoor store? Is that a sporting goods store? Is that, is it rock climbing and camping gear? What percentage of apparel versus hard goods? I mean, like, and then what is it gonna look like, and smell like, and feel like, and what are the owner roles? What, if you don't, that's the business plan, you know? If we continually, that's the other thing, is I use it as an ongoing tool now. So like, when we make a change, pivot, whatever, or in addition to our plan, we use that as a working document to make sure that we're all on the same page throughout the process. That's like the #1 reason why I've seen partnerships die, and seen people struggle, is because you're not properly communicating. I was telling my grandpa's old slogan was communicate or deteriorate. And so, and that's just one method of communication. The banks love it when you're that organized. I just bailed on a nonprofit I was on because we kept going to meetings, presenting to potential investors or other stakeholders, and we weren't bringing any material that really spelled out our, who we are, what we were doing. And I kept pushing for it, and I kept hearing, we don't need that. Like they know us, and but I quit because I didn't want to be a part of an organization that was running on, without proper communication pieces. So I've got no problem quitting things either. I think that we're scared to quit. What I like about sort of the new entrepreneurial push is that, that a lot of people are doing these minimum viable products, and then